Okay, so let's analyze this presidential debate, the Trump-Harris debate from Tuesday, September 10th. Today is September 11th here using PatternAI. So what I did is I took this debate and I gave it to Pattern and I asked it to analyze this entire meeting. And so it's what we have here. So we have a headline here, which is that Vice President Harris and former President Trump clash on economy, abortion, immigration, key national issues in this ABC News debate. We have an overall meeting summary here, which is that this featured these two speakers here, and the debate touched on key issues such as the economy, abortion, immigration, foreign policy, climate change, and so on. And so we've analyzed this, but let's take a look at some of the interesting things about this. Let's take a look at the analytics here because this gets kind of interesting. So first of all, we have the sentiment scores for each of the different for the two different speakers, I should say. So let's just make this kind of small here. Actually, we'll zoom in just a little bit here just to make it a little bit smaller here. And we can start to see the different sentiment moments or the moments of sentiment for, let's say, Trump versus Kamala Harris here. And one thing, the first thing you notice here, so Pattern will show you the different moments, who spoke when, and what the sentiment was at that moment here. So red is negative, green is positive, blue is generally, or light blue generally is neutral, and gray means they're not speaking here. So here you can see Trump is largely negative. So there's, mostly the couple positive points here, and mostly a bunch of negative points here, maybe a couple positive points. And you can look here at Kamala Harris was largely positive. Talk time here was about the same, it was about 45%. Trump spoke a little bit more than Kamala Harris here. She spoke about 40% of the time. Then, of course, David Muir spoke about 10% of the time, and Lindsey Davis spoke 5% of the time. Interestingly enough, looks like men speak more than women here, so 55% of the time versus 45% of the time, for what that's worth. But we also see the magnitude of the sentiment here. So we can see the key moments here. So what was this especially negative moment here, or this one right here? We can actually click that and go see it's actually Trump here. So he's talking about, we have to solve that problem that we have right now. We have a nation that is dying. So that's a pretty negative moment there, actually. We could actually go back to that moment and play that back here and go see what's happening here. And Trump is talking about that. So we won't do that now, but just to take a look at this negative moment here. The very positive moments here, we can take a look at that. That's Kamala Harris. Talk about, denying court cases, whatever, deeply troubling. I don't know why that is, why that's a positive comment here, but we can actually go to that. And maybe there's some other context around that moment that made it slightly positive there. But in general, and this is the engagement level here. So you can see this is fairly engaging throughout the entire, this is a very engaging debate here. I think what's interesting is, so AI will automatically, and PatternAI will automatically extract out the tasks here. So let's see what the tasks were from this presidential debate. So ABC News should fact check the claims made during the debate at various points. Kamala Harris, we should have a task here. She's going to extend a $6,000 tax cut for young families, mentioned around 351. She's going to provide a $50,000 tax deduction for small businesses. And let's see, Kamala Harris is going to reinstate protections of Roe v. Wade if Congress passes a bill. She's going to protect she's going to prosecute transnational criminal organizations and so on. I don't see that Trump has any tasks here, which is kind of interesting. Maybe it's possible that Trump doesn't really have any plans or tasks that he wants to complete here. But I think that's kind of interesting. Let's take a look at some of the topics here that came up in the debate here. Topics will show you the key patterns here. We have overall topics here. We have like important and things like that. So we can see all the keywords here. Let's take a look though. I created a filter here called politics. And in this filter, you can create different themes here. So I create some themes here called, just a few of them. So we have economy, healthcare, climate change, immigration, China, national security, and education. So let's look at economy first. So I put in some keywords here like jobs, taxes, inflation, small business, and so on. And we can see that these, anyway, for these terms here, the economy came up 30 times in this debate here. There's a negative moment here about jobs, where jobs was mentioned. Donald Trump said that, the FBI defrauded with their statements. It was fraud, just like their claim of creating 818,000 jobs, which turned out to be false. So there was a negative moment there. There was a positive moment here. Let's see there. One of the most incredible jobs he's ever seen done. So there was some positive moment that Donald Trump was saying there. Inflation came up 7 times. Tax cuts came up only once. We could search for taxes just the same here, but the phrase tax cuts came up once, deficit came up 3 times, and so on. Let's look at healthcare. So healthcare came up a lot more than the economy, at least for these terms here. So healthcare might have come up less, but for these terms here, it came up. The total came up 41 times. Abortion came up 14 times under healthcare. So that was one of the big topics they discussed in healthcare. Roe v. Wade came up 5 times. You can see that in this pattern there. Climate change, at least we only had a few terms here, climate, environment, climate change, and so on, came up 5 times. Not a huge issue. Immigration came up a lot, and the border came up a lot. Let's see this negative moment here. Turn out immigration, border security. So it's important to Republicans, Democrats, and voters. So we can see that here. Kamala Harris. So orange in this case here in the pattern detection here for the topics is mostly neutral, maybe slightly negative, but generally neutral. Green is positive, red is very negative. And so generally speaking, these issues were pets, dogs. There was some issue about specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the community. There's something about Trump saying that people are eating, immigrants are eating pets and things like that. So that's kind of interesting. So China came up, at least for things like chips, Taiwan, President Xi, and so on came up. National security came up. I put more terms in here, so it came up more here. But there's a lot of mentions about democracy. Putin came up. Ukraine came up 15 times, much more than North Korea, much more than China, in fact. So China was only mentioned 7 times, but Ukraine and Putin were mentioned 14, 15 times. War came up 17 times. Let's see what this negative moment was here. Hard to negotiate peace before this war started. And so it seems like there's a bunch of negative stuff here about war that makes sense here. And then education, at least for the terms that I selected here, children, students, and so on came up just a few times. So lots of interesting patterns on those. We could look at different things in here, like, for example, important. We could look at a technology lens and see if there are any, not a lot of technology came up. AI came up a couple times here. Software. This is not a great pattern here, but we could go deeper on that. And then we can look at things like some of the difficult words here, like problem, can't, won't, couldn't, difficult, and so on. So you can see issues. So you can see some of these negative words came up a lot. Growth, talking about, all these different positive words here. So these are different word patterns here that are kind of interesting here. And so, but let's do something really interesting here. Let's go ask Pattern about this debate here. And so let's go ask Pattern, just say, you're an astute political analyst with neutral views on the candidates. And let's go see, provide an analysis and tell me who, quote unquote, won the debate and who had the stronger performance. And let's just take a look at that. So this is going to look at the overall conversation here. And so it's going to, we didn't give it a lot of context here, so we don't say who won the debate because they had better details about plans, or who was more assertive, or who was more thoughtful or balanced in their views, or whatever. We just said you're an astute political analyst, but the analyst that you are as AI is neutral on the candidates. And so just, tell me who won and who had the stronger debate performance. And so Pattern's going to analyze this entire 1 hour and 47-minute debate here and then provide an analysis here. In this case, we're going to be using the GPT-4 model, but we could have used any other model that we have under the hood here with Claude, Gemini, and so on. In fact, we could ask those there. So strengths, Kamala, substance and specifics, $50,000 tax deductions. We noted earlier, $6,000 tax cut for families and so on. Weaknesses, defensive posture. She seemed defensive, particularly responding to Trump's attacks on her record and positions. His strengths were aggressiveness and commanding presence, aggressive stance throughout the debate, repeatedly questioning her record and so on. Lack of specifics, divisive rhetoric, fact-checking issues. Overall, determining winner is tough, but it doesn't look like it's really going to take a clear position here. Just tell me who had the better performance. Let's just say that one winning is a hard thing in debate. So just tell me who had the better performance overall. And let's just see if we can just get a quick answer from the AI. But what's interesting about using AI for this kind of analysis here is that, so you can see here that this is AI, says that Vice President Kamala Harris seems to have had a better or stronger performance overall, which is, I think, interesting. So, and I don't think there's any bias to this. I think it's just, you're just looking at the language and the responses and things like that. So, AI can help us be political analysts, can help us get our own sense of what's going on. We could also do fact checking if we wanted to, but that's, a different conversation here. So anyway, that is analyzing the presidential debate using PatternAI and using natural language processing and just analyzing the entire conversation. Using in part large language models, but there's a lot of other things going on under the hood here, and I hope that's helpful.